Good afternoon. This is Kathie Kallevig. I'm an associate professor at Yavapai College in Prescott, Arizona. I apologize that I couldn't be there today. I really wanted to, but just time and schedule just did not allow it for me. During my presentation today, I wanted to cover some of my interest in women in professional wrestling, the growth of women within the field of professional wrestling, and even some of the limitations or some of the issues that we start to see of women being in professional wrestling. And then finally, I wanted to address some questions as I wrap up my presentation. As I grew up, getting into professional wrestling, becoming a fan of professional wrestling, I grew up watching legends like George the Animal Steel, Junkyard Dog, Hulk Hogan, Randy Macho Man Savage. These were the characters, these were the faces that I got to know. Along with those faces, I got to know the valets like Sensational Sherry, Miss Elizabeth, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Those were the voices, those were the talents that I saw. They drew me in. They were engaging. They were inspiring. That is what brings me to today. So a little bit, again, the idea that I want to explore is what does it take to become a WWE Diva? I'm not talking about the application process. I'm not talking about, why you want to become a WWE Diva, or WWE Diva, but I'm looking at the evolution. How did we get to this point? And what is next for women in professional wrestling? So one of the things as a communication scholar I like to do is look at definitions. Sounds a little goofy, but it's something that I enjoyed looking at. As I looked up what a diva is, one of the first definitions I came across is a self-important person who is temperamental and difficult to please, typically used of a woman. Now, I'm sure many of you can stop, pause, and think about, okay, within the field of professional wrestling, the women within professional wrestling, this is kind of fitting, kind of appropriate. But is it a positive view of women in professional wrestling? Temperamental, difficult to please. A little unfair. We also see definitions like a usually glamorous and successful female performer or personality. Much more fitting, much more appropriate. Looking at that definition, I can see Charlotte, I can see Natalia, I can see in toss-ins, the Bella twins on their good days, and we start seeing some of those aspects, those personalities start to develop. As we start moving forward and looking at what it takes to become a diva, or even beyond a diva, we start thinking about what brought us to this point. Back in the 20s and 30s, circus and roadside affairs brought our attention to women in wrestling. There were, sideshow booths, that you could watch women wrestling, but they were always kind of doing these soft moves. It was never anything difficult. Without trailblazers such as Mae Young, Mildred Burke, Judy Byers, we'd never get, or not Judy, June Byers, we'd never get to the performers, the athletes, the talent that we have today. So next we get a look at the creation of a WWE Diva, or what it takes to become a diva. Prior to today, female wrestlers, female performers have served a variety of different roles within the WWE, or even within the world of wrestling outside of the WWE. Since 1937, there has been a recognized women's champion. The very first was Mildred Burke. And I believe, I lost my little note, but I believe this is her right in this lower corner. When we look at the roles and the positions that women have played in professional wrestling, we have seen active wrestlers, we have seen valets and managers, we have seen the backstage interviewers, and we have seen the ring announcers. Again, women have served in various functions, various roles. In the early 20th century, women's wrestling was a crowd pleaser, depending on the skill, depending on the quality of the show. The matches could be lousy, they could be lewd, they could be cheap displays of debauchery. You never knew exactly what you were going to get. From the sideshow era, women's wrestling branched out into two camps. We have the ladies' professional wrestling and the more formal Olympic style of wrestling. Both have really grown and developed over years. With ladies' professional wrestling, organizations such as WOW, Women of Wrestling, GLOW, WWF, WWE, and TNA have tapped into the rising entertainment, elevating women's professional wrestling from something regional at county fairs to something that we see in mainstream pop culture. So how did we get to this point? In the early days, we had the fabulous Moolah, again up here in the corner. She is what some would refer to as the original diva. In the summer of 1985, I know I'm jumping ahead several decades, summer of 1985, there's actually a competition of established managers to offer their services to Macho Man Randy Savage. Miss Elizabeth won that opportunity or that position to be his valet. Because of her beauty, it did launch him into a variety of different storylines. And this is one of the first pictures of those two actually together as valet and athlete. In 1990, the WWE, WF, kind of depending on who you ask, female talent roster began to get phased out. They wanted to shift from actual talent to more arm decoration. So the skimpy dresses, all that, it was kind of that emphasis on valets and managers. In the late 1990s, such as 1998 and later, the shift became from valet to talent. There was a push. In April of 1999, Sable, down here, became the very first female WWE talent to refer to herself as a diva. And this appropriately happened during the Attitude Era. So we did see a shift. We did see a dynamic change. What it meant to become a diva. We had all these different aspects. And if you think back to my definitions at the start of the presentation, temperamental, hard to please, we had large personalities. That's what the idea of a diva was. In a nod to the larger-than-life celebrities such as Aretha Franklin, the WWE used the term diva to once, explain their female wrestlers. And this was something that Stephanie McMahon always stood by, was, we're doing it to show, that they can be glamorous, that they can be larger-than-life personalities. However, as you can see, the pink butterflies, the pink, the glitter, and just an oversized butterfly does not really seem to be fierce, does not seem to be strong, right? A little soft, a little feminine, delicate. It didn't embody the idea of being a champion or being, a serious professional athlete. The top belt was the first championship belt, or the first style, 1956 to 2010. The middle, the Divas Championship. With the rise of the Divas Championship, Stephanie McMahon was given a lot of credit for her role, as she was kind of that key creative player at that point in time. And then the bottom was the women's championship belt that was introduced in April of 2016. So as the new era of women's professional wrestling evolved, we can look at new trailblazers in the sports entertainment. We can move beyond the bra and panty matches of the past, and thankfully we didn't have too many of those. One of the big changes that we started to see was the influx of the use of technology. social media became a voice, and a very loud voice for that. Social media, such as Twitter, created a sense of urgency to change its portrayal of women in professional wrestling, which was really considered to be out of touch with mainstream culture. It changed. There was 3 days of the Give the Divas a Chance movement. 3 days of that streaming, of that live, of that push. The new wave of women professional wrestling changed. The new wave of female professional athletes changed. We had Serena Williams, or we have Serena Williams. We had talent like Ronda Rousey. And these are just to name a few, becoming that catalyst, that movement. They are the ones that have captivated mainstream pop culture. So as the pressure on the WWE grew through Twitter, the Give the Divas a Chance movement pushed. This movement voiced the concerns of viewers to give women the same amount of time on air as men. So we see that change. We see that history, that past moving and really growing the idea of women in professional sports and looking at their roles. Now, I realize a lot of history was just covered in these last, 11 and a half minutes. But I want you to think about that for a second. Social media has made a huge impact on what it meant to become a diva and what it means for future women's athletes, or women athletes. So just to kind of pull this back, Vince McMahon tweeted February 24th, 2015, "We hear you. Keep watching." Believe me, we will. The voices of the WWE universe have been heard. The rise of professional female athletes, the importance, the prominence, their talent have become catalysts. They're not just simply divas anymore. They are athletes. They're talent. So to look at some of the questions, what is the next venture in women's professional wrestling? So what do we hold next for them? We've gotten beyond the diva. We've moved beyond some of these titles and these ideas. So what's next? Where do we want them to go? Can you think of women who are on the current WWE roster who can lead the next revolution or evolution? What are potential outside influences? Media, political, even different athletic influences. What kind of catalysts can be made in future movements? This is my challenge for you. Think about these. Again, I apologize I can't be there today. I look forward to hearing back from you.